Uncle Mark,
Yes.
in this time of quarantine,
Yes. Quarantine.
one is tempted to dig into the classic catalog, the Criterion Collection, and
Cinema.
Yeah, visit some old cinema that hasn't been viewed in a while.
I watched Nacho Libre the other night because I was anxious and just needed to turn my brain off, and fucking hell did it work. And then last night I watched David Lynch's director's cut of Dune.
Oh,
Ooh,
Yeah.
how delightful.
So yes, I've been fiddling
Point
around in
Uncle
cinema.
Mark, I do believe that movie was directed by one Alan Smithy.
It was until David Lynch decided to put his name on it again.
Until he decided to admit to it.
Yes, exactly. So
I love that movie. We should do it. We should do a segment on just that. But
I know,
Uncle
I love
Dan,
movies,
you have a classic piece of cinema you'd like to talk about today?
Indeed. Well, fellas, it's springtime. And
You bet it is.
As we speak, we are recording today on Easter Sunday.
Isn't it pronounced Esther?
Erster.
Erster, yeah. I'll agree to disagree.
Which is, of course, the holiday when the American atheists are supposed to have their convention, but too bad.
and Lucian Greaves' visit to UVU is supposed to be this week as well.
Yeah.
Boo. We got screwed out of all the good
coronavirus.
things.
We don't like coronavirus.
Anyway, Easter's also the holiday when millions of good Christians participate in the long-held tradition of gathering as a family and watching a movie about Passover. That's right.
A holiday they stole.
Right, yeah, exactly. So today I'm not going to do a Bible story. Today I'm doing a story of a guy doing a Bible story. My subject is that almost 4-hour deep voice yelling contest, Cecil B. DeMille's Cast of Thousands epic, The Ten Commandments.
Yay!
Bum, 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 bum.
Massive racist Cecil B. DeMille.
Yes, indeed. But everybody was a massive racist back then. Come on.
I was going to say,
cut him some slack.
everyone in history was a racist asshole. There's just nothing
Yes,
around
that's right. Guys, on this show, we have talked a lot about the events and characters and really stupid rules that came out of the book of Exodus. Like, a lot. Too much?
It's one of our favorite subjects.
Nah, couldn't be too much. Just the right amount. Anyway, I feel like one of the biggest reasons we've gone so in-depth on the subject is that this movie got under the skin of Americans, the American movie-going public, in a way that few other movies have. I mean, it's like 10 Commandments and Ernest Goes to Camp, and that's about it. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up watching this movie. I played it on TV. It played on TV around this time every year, and one year we used up 6 or 7 VHS tapes recording it so that we could watch it whenever we wanted to. So that turned out to be quite a bit. Not sure what I liked so much about it. Maybe it was the cartoonishness of the whole thing, the crazy overacting and insanely bright colors. Maybe it was the overly grand nature of the production. Or maybe it was just Ann Baxter in all those gauzy dresses. Who knows?
Oh, man.
We'll never be able to tell. But whatever it was, I watched it a bunch of times as a little guy.
Yeah, those barely covered gossamer tits were like the first boner I ever had.
Right?
It's funny. I don't remember those.
Really?
Yeah, not really.
More of a Ramses kind of guy?
I feel like I had a little more going for Ramses there.
Okay, that's fine. We were
I like
team
the winning
Nefertiti.
team.
Well, there you go. So let's talk about this grand piece of cinema that cost more to make than any movie before it and won not 2, not 3, not 4, but 1 Oscar for Best Special Effects.
Is that true?
Yeah. Don't worry, though. This powerful piece of filmmaking also won Best Picture of the Month for the whole family by the Box Office Blue Ribbon Awards for the month of January in 1957. So,
Wow, how about that?
High
that's
praise.
no slouch.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the film so huge it literally killed its maker. Cecil B. DeMille had a long track record of making biblical/religious films. Hell, The Ten Commandments was actually a remake of a silent film he made by the same name back in 1923.
Well, if it ain't
Other
broke.
big religious epics included King of Kings, which is really the one that Christians should be watching around Easter, it being about Jesus and his death and resurrection and all, but whatever. He made Samson and Delilah, The Sign of the Cross. He was a devoted Episcopalian, except for all the extramarital affairs, and also he was a staunch conservative, unless he was supporting Franklin Roosevelt. He opposed unions, except apparently for the ones that he belonged to or tried unsuccessfully to start. So, complicated guy.
Consistent is what I like about him.
If there's one thing we can say for him, it's consistency. And the guys at Paramount...
be consistent.
The guys at Paramount, the company that he started and then left and then came back to, can tell you that that's the case. But he did love his churchy movies, and the Ten Commandments was his tour de force. With a record-breaking production budget of $13.2 million, which is the equivalent to roughly $125 million of today's dollars, the film the massive film, included a literal cast of thousands. Well, actually, do you count extras as cast, Mark? Help me out with that one.
Generally not, but but they sometimes do when they're making like epics like that.
Sure. I would say a cast of tens, but like extras numbering a lot. Anybody want to guess at like how many extras were used in the large crowd scene?
For some reason, I have the number 4,000 in my head.
3,999.
Neither of you went over. 14,000 extras in this fucking film. And 15,000 animals. So,
wow.
Listen, anyone who's ever been on a film set with a crowd sized more than 30 people knows that that's too many to wrangle.
Yeah, but I can testify to that fact. Once you get above 100, it is fucking bedlam.
Yeah. So the fact that I guess it's not that surprising that he did have a heart attack in the middle of one of the big crowd scenes. It's just too much. But that was DeMille's game, so he played it better than anybody.
Yeah, he did go big.
Yeah, exactly. And they filmed those scenes actually in Egypt. So DeMille was sure to have that stunning authenticity.
Wow.
I mean, where else is a guy based in Southern California going to find a bunch of barren desert wasteland? So let's get to the film itself. It opened in 1956. After an exclusive premiere event in New York, the film went on the road, going from city to city in a roadshow style rather than having a nationwide opening. Anybody want to guess where the first city was that tour landed?
Topeka.
The place where the Ten Commandments opened. Against
Memphis.
the will of the studio, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Holy shit.
Really?
Yeah.
No
It
kidding.
opened here?
DeMille thought that if he could get the serious-minded Mormons to like it, then every kind of religious weirdo would like it. And we'll talk more on DeMille and the Mormons later on.
Wow.
Interesting.
Finally, we're on the map.
Right? And we have the first KFC. We're killing it.
That's right.
Wow.
All right. And he was right, by the way, about that. The film grossed more than any other film that year, and then it just kept going. First of all, it continued this roadshow-style run until mid-58, so that's almost 2 years after it premiered.
Wow.
And then it had a successful general opening. Then it was re-released in the theaters in 1966, and again in 1972, and again in 1989.
Jesus.
Though there's some disagreement about where it ranks, if you adjust for inflation, it's easily in the top 10 of the highest-grossing films of all time.
No
and if
kidding.
you don't adjust for inflation, then to hell with you. The movie, as I said before, is a lavish production with remarkable special effects for the time, including the Pillar of Fire, the parting of the Red Sea, and the changing of the white people into Middle Easterners / Africans. So all of those really impressive things.
Yeah. They turned a bunch of white anti-Semite Hollywood actors into Jews. It's kind of a miracle.
It was one of the things that they won the Oscar for.
You're right.
It's replete with famous lines spoken in only the manliest of voices, except for the
places by
aforementioned
my
Anne
side,
Baxter.
Nefertiti.
Right? Examples include, "So let it be written, so let it be done," and "Your fragrance is like the wine of Babylon," which was maybe my favorite thing I've ever heard him say.
So fucking awesome.
And of course, the most famous of them all, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. In its theatrical release, the film opened with DeMille himself emerging onto an empty stage from behind some curtains to speak directly to the audience. He tells us that this is the story of the birth of freedom. The theme of this picture, he says, because it's always a good idea for a storyteller to explicitly state his theme.
Tell, don't show. That's the
right,
word.
exactly.
Yeah.
He says the theme of this picture is whether men ought to be ruled by God's law or whether they are to be ruled by a dictator like Ramesses. And that's how he pronounced it, Ramesses. He apparently did not see any kind of irony in that statement, God being the ultimate dictator, and also, like, if you just read a little bit further in that Bible of his, all of those Jews become slave owners, but whatever.
Yeah.
So that was a weird thing for DeMille to do, to open his movie with
I was a showman.
him.
Yeah.
He was apparently trying to make sure that nobody missed the connection between his movie and the evils of Soviet communism. This was 100% a Cold War film. Yul Brynner's Ramses was Stalin or Mao, and Chuck Heston, the deliverer from bondage, was America. Yay! Strangely, the first 5 hours of the film, okay, the first hour and a half, but man, it's a long film, are basically entirely non-biblical. It covers roughly 10 verses of Exodus chapter 3, but that doesn't mean that it was all bullshit. Well, it does, but not like a lot of people think. So yes, the first hour and a half, almost no Bible, but DeMille himself actually claimed in the opening preamble to the film that he had used other sources to fill in a lot of the gaps in Moses' life. These included Josephus and Philo, who were ancient historians that DeMille was convinced had access to ancient documents that are now lost to us. He also used the Jewish Midrash, which is, I really don't know if that's a plural or not, a bunch of biblical writings by ancient rabbis, and he had more rabbis consulting on the work. So, all that extra biblical, air quotes, scholarship doesn't actually mean that the story in the Ten Commandments is any more authentic, mind you. It's just that now he's using some ancient historians' made-up stories about an even ancienter character as a supplement to the existing stories, which are also almost certainly made up. Also, he did just make a bunch of shit up because, what's a movie if it doesn't have a sexy love triangle?
Well, you're not going to pull a 4-hour movie off of like one half of one chapter of a book without some extrapolation.
Well, now, mind you, we have. I managed to squeeze 3 episodes of our show out of.
I think it was
4. Oh God, it never ended.
Yeah.
So if he had just stuck to the Bible, he could have done the movie, but no, he decided he needed a whole bunch of exposition to make sure that we understood. I don't know. I'm not sure what.
I am a stranger in a strange land.
Right, exactly. Oh, I promised there would be more Mormon connections, so I got to get to those. So I'll start with this. Speaking of Anne Baxter's sexy, gauzy gowns, Edith Head got an Oscar nomination for the costumes. Edith Head gives good costume. But she wasn't the only person listed in that nomination. Her whole team was named, including one surprising addition. Former Mormons listening to our show may recognize the name Arnold Freiberg.
Oh, yeah.
But Freiberg wasn't a costume designer. He was a painter. He did all the wildly and maybe inadvertently homoerotic paintings of the Book of Mormon characters that have graced so many of the Mormon handbooks through the years.
I bet you remember those, Mark.
Homoerotic.
Yeah. Whether he intended it or not, it was many a young boy's first boner.
Yeah, and
sure.
also his other subjects that he loved to paint were Canadian Mounties and Boy Scouts. So make of that what you will.
Right. Well, apparently what DeMille made of it was that he was amazing because DeMille had did a nationwide search for somebody to do concept art for the film before production, and Freiberg fit the bill to a T. Freiberg, and so because DeMille loved his art so much, Edith Head used his images to create her costumes. Therefore, he was credited
in the costume department.
In the costume department.
Well, and it's funny because some of the costumes are just robes, most of them. But Yul Brynner as Ramses II, his armor is fucking legit. There's that scene near the end where he's going to go chase Moses, and he just stands in his throne room and puts his arms outstretched, and his slaves come in and just kind of assemble his armor on him.
Yeah, he was like the original Iron Man.
Fantastic. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I dress every morning. What are you talking about? I just stand there and my servants come and adorn me.
You've made it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, apparently Freiberg. That's how that was one Mormon connection. Is that Arnold Freiberg got credit for being on the team, on Edith Head's team. Huh. Speaking of promotional material, by the way, and I should say, sorry, that DeMille used Freiberg's work at the end as he was distributing the film as promotional material for the film as it was touring around. Which, by the way, I got to tell you, if you listen to Thank God I'm Atheist or The Scathing Atheist or any current event shows about religion, you really should listen to Thank God I'm Atheist, by the way. It is fantastic. They've got this one guy who's great. Anyway,
Frank's tremendous.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, just really, really nice. Anyway, you'll know that there are constant First Amendment battles being fought all over America over the placement of the Ten Commandments, stone tablets type things, just like the ones in the movies, on government grounds.
Yep, we've talked about it on our show as well, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That shit all started because of DeMille.
That's
right.
And
the studio who sent those things out as publicity stunts to cities and states before the film came there. So
that's right.
Thanks for that little constitutional crisis, Cecil. Appreciate that. More Mormon stuff. The voice of God in the burning bush in the film is that of one Chuck Heston, which, how masturbatory is that? He's talking to his own self. Or maybe that's what we're all doing when we talk to God.
Hello, Charles. Well, hello, Charles.
Anyway, so think of that what you will, but there was another God voice in the movie, and that's in the scene where Moses gets the tablets. And it was the voice of one Jesse Jukes, a bass in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Really?
And they even used one stop of the tabernacle organ to add some boom to it. Now, how did Cecil DeMille get access to that organ and that bass? Well, he was friends with Mormon President David O. McKay.
Really?
Huh. Yeah. Apparently, when you make biblical movies, it's useful to have a friendly relationship with the leadership of many different religions.
Yeah,
and DeMille was 100% on board with that.
Boy, Cecil be sucking up.
100%. But he seems to have had a special affinity for McKay, which is likely why the film opened in Salt Lake, and also why, in 1957, DeMille gave the commencement address and was awarded an honorary Doctorate of Letter degree from Brigham Young University. And in that address,
the Trump University of its time.
I think we keep finding that all roads lead to BYU.
Well,
Idaho.
All the unluckiest ones do anyway.
Yeah, all the shitty roads.
Yeah. In that address that he gave, the commencement speech that he gave, he praised Brother McKay and said that he had, quote, almost made me a Mormon, which in my mind is probably one of the heaviest leanings on the word almost of all time. Anyway, I thought I'd close out by offering you guys the chance to both do your Charlton Heston impressions, because I know you want to. So I want to hear it. Let's whip it out. Do your best. Let my people go.
All right, Doug, go ahead.
Ramses, let my people go. That was fucking terrible.
That was John Wick. Okay, Ramses, Let my people go.
Moses.
That's Yul Brynner.
I know. I love
That's
Yul
Ann
Brynner.
Baxter.
What's he got now, huh?
Dan, you're going to kill it. Dan's got a good Heston.
Okay, I'll give it a try. Ramses, let my people go. Yeah.
Soylent Green is my people.
Let my Soylent Green be made of people.
I think we have a winner, and
right.
I, for one, would just like to thank the Academy.
All right,
Well done. You and not Mr. DeMille, unfortunately.
You know, by the way, Uncle Dan, if you want to blow your mind, go to Edward G. Robinson, who plays Dathan.
Yes, indeed.
If you go to his IMDb page, it is incredible.
Oh, he was in everything. He was in everything.
The 1930s to like the 1970s. He was in up to, I think he was in 7 movies in 1 year, but like 3 or 4 movies a year.
Oh, and he was a
the
reliable
studios
bad
used to
guy.
like literally. They used to own people essentially, so you
Right.
just had to be in every movie the studio wanted to put you in. Like you didn't really have a choice. You just went from stage 1 to 2 to 3 in the same day. You know.
Yeah. I read a whole thing about, and there was a limited pool of actors, period. I read a thing about DeMille not wanting to cast anybody who had already worked on a competing studio's show, Prince of Egypt or something of Egypt, because it was basically the same fucking thing. But still 4 people made it in. He had 4 actors who were in
when you
both
got
shows.
14,000 people, there's going to be some crossover. So
Yeah, but most of those people were probably actually like brown people from the Middle East because he shot out there. So
that's so insane. All right, well that was wonderful, and
Yes, there you go.
maybe I'll watch it tonight and live tweet it. Who knows? But with that, let's move on out of Egypt.
Let's move on.
let's go.